What is up, guys? Welcome back to another video. Today I'm gonna talk about the baby formula experiment. So what is the baby formula experiment? So it is a social experiment that went viral on TikTok. I think it started by a TikTok user called Monroe, which she pretends to be a mother with a hungry baby and asks churches for baby formula. And the result was most churches did not help, and this caused a lot of controversy online. Now, in this video, I will try to explain about what the experiment is and what are my thoughts about it. And and I think I'm gonna address some misconceptions, misunderstanding, and misinformation about this video. So let's get started. So first of all, what is the baby formula experiment? So for the background, I think it started during the 2025 US government shutdowns. It started from October 1st until the 12th of November. Now, I don't know why they shut down, but one of the effects of this government shutdown is that the SNAP benefits will not be distributed. Yeah, I think it was announced on October 27, and the US government announced that they will not distribute SNAP benefits for the month of November. SNAP is a short for Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, which is a nutrition program that has help to feed hungry families, to feed low income families and citizens to receive assistance. Now, usually this is kind of helpful. This is a government program and this is useful to feed low income people. I think this is really, really beneficial. This will help keep a lot of people fed. I think it's estimated that 42 million Americans are enrolled in this program. Now, I think it is kind of obvious that when they announced they will not be distributing those benefits, a lot of people are kind of concerned, which is understandable. I mean, they kind of need those benefits, to feed their families. Now, usually when government fails, I think the next best thing for social services is basically churches, and I think this is where we will come into the experiment. Now one day, Monroe posted a video announcing that she will be calling out churches for doing an experiment, and I will put the video here on the video so you can see it by yourself.
Okay, so for those of you that actually go to church and donate your hard-earned money, do you actually know what your money goes to when you donate to your church? Because I know some of you, can't really afford much and you give what you can, and that takes money out of your own mouths, maybe. You might give, your last few dollars to church. And I'm curious if that church actually helps your community or not, or if they just pocket your money. So I'm actually going to be testing and seeing if local churches in my area first are willing to help somebody that's in need when they call up and ask for help, or kind of like what the response is in general that they give me. I honestly don't know if they're going to be willing to help somebody in need, or if they're going to be like, no, sorry, we can't help you. And I honestly, like, my take on it, my personal beliefs, because I don't go to church, is that they're not going to want to help anybody that doesn't specifically want to go to their church, or interested in going to their church, or doesn't already attend their church. That's my view. That is my personal view. I want to be proven wrong. Okay, I want y'all to know that. I want to be proven wrong. But I am going to test it. And I'm going to call them, and I'm going to call them on the phone with you so you can see what is said and how they respond, and if they're willing to help somebody in need. I will be lying and making up stories and scenarios to see if they're willing to help. If you're investing your hard-earned money to give to your church, that church should be giving back to you and your family when you're in need, and it should be giving back to your community with that money, okay? I live in a Bible Belt. I live in Somerset, Kentucky. It's a very, very small town. We probably have 100 churches here. I never see churches come out to help anybody. Okay? Never. And I'm about to see that if I call them up personally, if they're willing to help somebody that calls and is in need. Stay tuned.
So what can we learn from this video is that for her premise of the experiment, she stated that since the church collects donations from churchgoers and the church is tax exempt from the state, thus the church has an obligation, or in our language, must give back to the community, which I think it makes sense. I think since churches got a lot of money, they got a lot of money from donations, I think it's really understandable to expect them to give back. I think her language that she uses is that pocket your money, but I'm not sure. So let's see how does she will do the experiment. So for starters, she will tell a story about her as being a mother, and she will try to feed her baby. Now her baby is a 2-month-old baby apparently, and she's asking the churches for baby formula. And how will she do this? So she will call the churches directly. Now, of course, this story is a lie. It's just an experiment, and yeah, I think it's for the sake, I think for the sake of the experiment, when the churches refer her to another source, Nikali will also come up that she already tried and didn't succeed. I think it's for the sake of the experiment. I think she was trying to measure, will the churches help you directly or not, in this case. Which I don't know if that really says anything about do churches help in the U.S. especially, but I think I'll say, and I will comment on that later. So what happened in the experiment is that she began calling churches on her local area, which is Somerset, Kentucky. But then, as the experiment progresses, she began to call churches outside the state of Kentucky, and eventually she began to accept requests from other viewers. And eventually she also called some non-Christian congregations. I think it's like one mosque, one Buddhist temple, and one anti-abortion place. So yeah, also this has become a big narrative, because these three places, they agree to help, and this become a big talking point. Like, oh, look at these places, these non-Christian congregations, they're way better than Christians. They she only called one, and they agreed to help. See, this proves that Christianity is way worse than these guys. I think it's like a gist of it. It's like saying, oh, churches do not help at all. Look at these other faiths. They will help better. They're way better. Shame on those churches. Propaganda destroyed all that stuff. And yeah, there's a lot of comments here, because the result. So okay, I'm gonna tell you the results of the experiment, and there's a lot of controversy here. So 6 out of 35 churches agreed to help, which is a very low number. I think there's like some calls of the churches are pretty controversial. For example, I'm gonna show you the Germantown Baptist Church video.
So I'm calling your church to test to see if they would help feed a starving baby. And right now I'm about to call Germantown Baptist Church located in Memphis, Tennessee. And we're going to see if they would be willing to feed a starving baby.
Thank you for calling Germantown Baptist Church. Please listen carefully as our menu options have changed. Press 1 for our address. Press 2 for worship service information, or press 0 for the operator.
Germantown Baptist Church.
Hi, yeah. I was wanting to see if you all could help with a small can of baby formula.
If we can help with what, I'm sorry.
Like a small can of baby formula.
Let me get the pastor on call for you. Let me place you on a hold. One moment, please.
Thank you for calling Germantown Baptist Church. Please listen carefully as our menu options have changed.
Thank you, ma'am. I saw you hung up, and I was like, oh, no, I'm going to have to call her back. But my system was jammed up, so I couldn't see who was actually on call. And I'm like, what is going on? And it's not working. And I usually print that out, and I didn't this time. But I'm just gonna walk back there and see. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. 1 moment.
Okay.
Hello.
Hi. Yes. I was just wanting to see if y'all were able to help with baby formula at all.
We unfortunately are not. We have a benevolence program, but it is for our members.
It's just for the members. Because, like, I have a 2-month-old and she hasn't ate, like, since last night. So she's gone all night and all day without any formula. Like, I don't need money or anything. I just need, like, a small little can. And I've been calling everywhere and they're just telling me to call churches. And I just don't know what else to do.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have any formula here to give out. We don't have any kind of food bank or anything like that.
Would it be
I'm not
something
sure
y'all
where.
could get and I could pick it up?
What's that?
Would it be something you all would be able to get and I can pick it up?
Well, like I said, if it's anything like that, our benevolence is for our members.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
And yeah, so that's the video. And 6 out of 35 churches, that's not a pretty number. I mean, that's like so little of churches that helped. I think it's like 17% of churches only helped her, get baby formula. Now, that's a pretty concerning number. And I think I understand why most people infer this as, oh, these churches are not helping us. They're just taking our money, they're pocketing our money, and they're not even giving it back to the community. I understand that, Now, here's my opinion about this, and disclaimer before I dive into my opinion. Number one, I'm a Christian, so I'm gonna offer this on a Christian perspective. And number two, I am Indonesian, so I'm not a US citizen, and I do not know much about US laws. And yeah, you're gonna see this perspective from a Christian and foreigner perspective. So, what do I think about this experiment? So, for starters, this caused a lot of drama, and this caused a lot of people to lose faith on the church. Why it means that a lot of people just don't believe churches will help. I mean, people have this stigma that, oh, these churches are greedy, corrupt, and they just won't help. They just take your money, and that's important. They will take it for themselves. And yeah, I do agree that there's some corrupt churches out there. There definitely are. I mean, we're human beings. We're just fallen in sin, and yeah, basically, yeah, I think I do agree that I think there's some corrupt churches out there. But here's the thing: what does the research say about congregation involvement on social services? I mean, how involved is the church in social services? So I tried to find some studies about this, and what I found is that there's like a lot of studies I found. For example, there's like a case study done in California where they observed 5 FBOs, and they were given a government grant, and 5 of them did well. They opened job training. They opened some programs. They run some recovery programs from alcohol, and some run programs like like helping other members to integrate back to society after being released from prison. After the state pulled their funding, some churches closed down. 2 of them closed down. 1 of them just returned back to just a tiny church, a congregation or faith-based organization. I think those are the languages, and 2 of them stayed operating, and 1 of them actually went pretty successful. Now, I think this is not only the case. I think another study I found is that across 12 US states, 63.2% of food pantries are affiliated by FBOs. Now, however, here's the thing that these FBOs, these FBO affiliated food pantries, they were open less often than secular food pantries. The most of these food pantries, being owned by FBOs, open like once per week, which it's kind of an issue compared to secular food pantries. Now, here's a quote about this situation. Charitable food organizations rely heavily on food and monetary donations and volunteers for their operation. In this way, faith-based or religious organizations, with their ability to engage their communities and which often work for social justice and against equality, are set up well to provide such services. In addition, volunteerism in food banks and pantries is often motivated by faith and has an important role in building community. This may explain the high proportion of food pantries identified as faith-based in the CFD. However, the variability in the hour operation of food pantries reflects the volunteer nature of food banking and is a legitimate concern among clients given that many rely on prolonged use of food pantries. This may illustrate the limits of volunteerism in addressing food insecurity, which may be exacerbated as participation in faith-based communities is declining. So yeah, you can see that I think that's the limit of church-based programs, is that they kind of rely on volunteers. And I will try to explain that more and further. But yeah, volunteerism, they rely on volunteers. And yeah, I think that's the limit. They cannot open as often as they do. And yeah, hence why some FBO based food pantries just open less often. Here's the thing I'm gonna say about this situation is that, I think we should, try to respect churches about it. We should respect them for trying to help the community. Here's why. So, according to a study I also found, is that, most of that 83% of churches or congregations that in being interviewed are actually involved in some sort of social service program, at least being one. Now that's a high percentage, and that's almost universally known. Like not universally known. It's very high rate. It's a very good chance that your church has a social program, and that's good. This shows that the churches at least are trying to help the community. Most of them. Now, here's another thing: is that some of these programs, they're not getting external funding at all. Like they don't really get external funding. Here's a quote from this. Looking at other indicators of a deeper involvement in social services, 9% of congregations had at least one program supported with outside funding, especially in light of all the media and research attention given the faith-based initiative. Congregational participation in government funding for social services seems strikingly low. Fewer than 2% of congregations had programs supported by a grant from a local, state, or national government agency, and only 5% had applied for a government grant. Within the last 2 years, while 9% of congregations reported starting a non-profit organization focused on human services or outreach in that same time period. All these numbers, not incidentally, are qualitatively similar to comparable NCS numbers from both 1998 and 2006. As Brad Fulton documents elsewhere in his volume, the faith-based initiative did not increase congregation receipt of public funds in support of their social service activity. I think this kind of shows that most of these congregations do operate alone. I don't know why. I think I read one excerpt from a paper somewhere. I read that congregations prefer like this. They want to have control of their programs. They don't really like try getting external funds. Most congregations do not really apply for funding, and yeah, that's why some of these programs try operate solely on congregation funds. And yeah, I think we gotta appreciate that they're trying to operate from their own funds. They don't, and yeah, we gotta respect that. Now, here's the thing about it. I gotta try to answer our question, which is what this experiment is trying to cover is that the church take our money, right? So we want to know how does the church uses our money? Like, how do they utilize it? How are they becoming? Are they good stewards of our money, or are they just taking our money just to buy Bentleys, private jets, or private homes on Colorado or something? I don't know. It can happen. It can happen. Corrupt churches do exist, but okay. So here's what the data shows, and to be clear, there's not much data. Also, I mean, there's not much research done to this topic, and I wish this social experiment will shine light upon this topic. I do think this experiment does a great job on bring up topic of discussion. Like, I think it brings up the discussion of how does the church use the money, and thankfully I found one data two. It's not much, but it's kind of useful to give an insight of how does the church use their money, because some churches they don't really it's kind of hard to find their financial statements after all. But here's the data from National Study of Congregations Economic Papers. So what does it say? Well, churches usually spend most of their budget on their staff, which accounts to 49% of the figure, and the second biggest is maintenance facilities, which is around 23%. Then, after that, are finally the programs and mission budget, which make up around 21% of the budget. And I think around this 21%, 35% of it went to worship activities. I think so. But But yeah, and then the rest of it went from missioning purposes, social services and stuff. So let's assume that that worship activity is considered social services. Let's assume that. Now here, okay, so I found another data. Here's the thing. So here's a paper that shows that churches directly spend as low as $700 or up to $1,500,000. $1,500 in cash on their social service programs, which accounts on average 2% of congregation's budget. Now, to be clear, this is the cash spend, so it is like direct spending, which is like cash. This does not account for other factors like staff, volunteering, the material value of the things given to charity and stuff. When accounting all that stuff, the figure can rise into 15 or up to 30% of their total budget, which it accounts everything. Now, here's what the paper says about it. If we use the most conservative estimate mentioned in the previous paragraph, that beyond the 2% in direct cash outlays on social services, 15% of congregational income is spent in ways that benefit non-members. It would mean that about $17 billion of the $115 billion given to religious organizations in 2014 benefited non-members. This estimate is too high since $115 billion was given to all religious organizations, not just congregations. A more conservative estimate will take 15% of the $22.1 billion contributed to congregations in a large but not complete subset of denominations in 2013, yielding $3.3 billion spent by congregations in ways that benefit non-members. This number is probably too low, since it's based on an estimate of total giving to congregation that does not include all congregations. But even by this conservative estimate, it is clear that congregations' financial contributions to their communities are substantial in absolute terms. So yeah, scholars do agree that churches do absolutely play a role in a community. 83% are involved, and according to this paper, it suggests that churches do spend a substantial money overall to social services. $3.3 billion. That's a lot of money. I mean, dude, that's pretty big. And yeah, I think this is really respectable, I say, and I think the only concerns I have is 49% goes to the staff. I mean, I don't know who's earning most in churches. I just think it's kind of surprising for me that churches are paying their staff. Like, I didn't know churches have staff. I thought it's like voluntary. I thought they don't get paid. I thought, but I don't really know, guys. I don't really know. So yeah, I think that's why it's surprised of me. But yeah, considering that most churches do operate on a budget, like mostly the data varies. I'm gonna use the 2019 study, the NS National Study Congregations Economic Practices thingy, the NSCEP. Most churches, 58% of them fall in a range of having a budget from 0 to up equal to or less than $250,000. Now if you do the maths, I think you can calculate it. It's kind of small, and yeah, that's what they have to work on with the social services. And we gotta respect it. I mean, come on. And yeah, I think I'm gonna close my opinion by quoting this quote from the paper. Finally, it should be noted that as impressive as congregations are in the social services arena, they cannot be a substitute for the public sector. It is not known whether most religious congregations are capable of or desire to expand their current provision of various services. This unknown factor suggests that any expectation that religious congregations can be a panacea of reduced public welfare spending is premature and unwise. For those congregations who are able to and wish to expand their current social programs, it appears that time, technical assistance, and supportive funding are required for congregations to provide high-quality, stable, and lasting services. Congregations can well complement the government commitment for people in need. They can reduce public expenditure, but only at the margins. An expectation that such diverse and often small organizations can substitute for government welfare is unrealistic and dangerous. While social services administrators will benefit from knowing and in some cases collaborating with these organizations, be aware of their strengths and weaknesses. It should be understood that congregations possess their own sets of resources and limitations and cannot be expected to carry the load of American welfare on their shoulders. So yeah, as great as they are, yeah, they cannot really carry so much. They have so much to carry. They only can carry so much until it's too much. Too much becomes too much. I think they should complement with the government programs. I think I agree with that. No system should work alone. And yeah, I think if they do teamwork, I think they will help a lot of people. Now, of course, there's some limitations. There's a research study, also a qualitative study, identifies some factors like financial constraints, bureaucracy, like complicating the process. Laws that these congregations have to obey to certain laws, per processes, regulations. It's stuff that makes it difficult for a person to stuff that makes it difficult to help a person in need. And volunteer burnout, like volunteers are human beings. Sometimes they get tired and they just don't want to show up. So sometimes they get tired, and yeah, they're human beings. And there's like other factors. In fact, I think I'm gonna refer to the study here. I think I'm gonna provide my sources too in this video. I'm gonna provide the sources in the description. I hope you can check it out, and yeah, I think you guys can read it. And yeah, please read the research by yourself, and you can interpret by your own. But yeah, I think that's my opinion, and yeah, I try to support my argument or my opinion about it. And yeah, I think that's all I have now. So here's the thing. There's like a lot of misinformation out there. So for example, there's like some videos that say that there are no churches at all that help. I think this narrative is kind of harmful because it's if this is a minor issue for me, but I just don't like it because it's not true. If 6 churches do still help on the experiment, so I don't really like this narrative where it's like no look, no churches do help. I think this is kind of harmful. It's kind of misleading. It's like making churches look bad because oh look, no one helped, but these guys do help. We should be these Christians should be ashamed. I don't think so. The data shows otherwise, and yeah, even in this experiment, there's some churches do help. Now, another thing I want to comment is that most Christians, when they make this video, they just easily concede for some reason. Like they just take this mentality of, it's in my opinion, but for me, it's just kind of upsetting that seeing Christians just like, is this true? Is that right that most churches do not help? They just don't ask beyond that. And I think that's kind of upsetting. Like they just don't do further research, But yeah, I understand not most people have the time to do that. I understand it, but yeah, it's a shame that most people just are stuck with this narrative. That's it. There's nothing else. There's like no further explanation to why it's like full of sensation. Like this surprising fun fact. Oh, look at this here. Did no one help? All that stuff. It's kind of distracting from the real data or the truth. I must say. That churches do help. I think it's kind of upsetting, really. And then Christians, just quickly to be ashamed. But instead of being ashamed, I think we should be proud of the progress we made. But of course, we can do better. I think we should take the extra mile, like these mosques, these Buddhist temples did, like these anti-abortion clinics did. I think we should try to have the compassion and try to help with our own, with the initiative. But of course, I think it's too much for asking that. I mean, it's not realistic. But yeah, but as the data shows, we play a role, like we play a big role on welfare, and I think this is a really it's a really good role. But yeah, I think I get it that most people are just stuck with this narrative, and yeah, people just don't do the further research, and I think it's kind of okay because most people just don't have the time for it, and yeah. And I do hope one day a better YouTuber, a better YouTuber, I mean like a smarter YouTuber who does this topic specifically to do research from this, so he can provide with more detailed explanation of this. Okay, so I hope that this video does provide explanation about this experiment more deeply, and I hope this this video provide you any value. But yeah, I think that's all. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you into the next video. Bye bye.